Klaus Mikealson, original vampire,
But Klaus, I know is real. Who is he?
One of the originals. The legend. From the first generation.
hybrid, and possibly the worst criminal history Mystic Falls has ever seen.
Klaus, Michael.
If anyone thought Damon Salvatore was bad, Klaus takes things to a whole new level. He doesn't just break the law, he redefines it, bending the world to his will through sheer force.
And if you continue to defy me, your lives will be reduced to an unending sequence of agonizing torture.
And supernatural dominance. If a judge ever tried to convict him, there's a good chance that judge wouldn't live long enough to read the full sentence. But let's pretend for a moment that Klaus was human and the legal system actually had a chance to put him behind bars. Just how long would his prison sentence be if he were held accountable for every crime he's ever committed? Spoiler alert, he wouldn't just be serving life. He'd be serving multiple lifetimes. Before we dive into mass murder and war crimes, let's start small, or at least as small as Klaus's offenses get. First up, breaking and entering. Klaus doesn't believe in knocking. He believes in walking straight into wherever he pleases. Whether it's a home,
What the hell do you want?
Now, is that any way to treat a guest?
a high security facility, or a secret society's hidden base.
I find it insulting that I was barred from your special little club.
In real life, unlawful entry is considered trespassing,
You there?
which carries up to 1 year in prison per offense. And considering Klaus has done this in nearly every episode of the Vampire Diaries and the originals, we're already looking at a couple of centuries in prison just for the number of times he's strolled into restricted areas. Then there's property destruction. It's not enough for Klaus to enter a place. He usually leaves it in ruins. He has a habit of smashing furniture, ripping doors off their hinges,
Why wouldn't she tell anyone where she was going?
and in extreme cases, burning buildings.
Put it out.
In legal terms, this falls under vandalism, arson, and reckless destruction of property. Depending on the severity, arson alone can carry a 20-year prison sentence per incident. And since Klaus has torched more buildings than most arsonists dream of, this easily stacks up to several hundred years in prison. And then, of course, we have assault.
No, that's not it.
One of Klaus's favorite pastimes. He doesn't just attack people when necessary, he does it for fun.
Well, that's a pity for you then.
Whether it's throwing someone across a room, snapping their limbs like twigs, or simply beating them into submission, Klaus's body count of injured victims is staggering. In legal terms, this ranges from simple assault, up to 1 year in prison per offense, to aggravated assault,
Perhaps I'll take something from you.
up to 20 years per case. If we conservatively estimate that Klaus has assaulted at least one person per episode across multiple seasons, we're already looking at thousands of years added to his sentence. But let's not forget compulsion.
Now show me a little southern hospitality. Bracelet.
If Klaus wants something, he doesn't ask for it. He simply takes control of people's minds and forces them to obey.
I want you.
In the real world, mind control isn't possible. But legally, this would fall under coercion, witness tampering, and unlawful imprisonment. Coercion,
Now go and live the rest of your days knowing.
particularly when it involves forcing someone to commit crimes, can carry up to 10 years in prison per victim.
Do it. You're gonna break me. Only thing you could do is kill me, so go on. Go on, get it over with.
You want me to end your suffering, don't you? Took everything from you, and now you're begging me to sweep away the shards of your shattered little life.
Witness tampering adds another 5 years per case, and unlawful imprisonment, when prolonged, can mean life in prison. Since Klaus has compelled hundreds, if not thousands, of people over the centuries, this category alone could land him in prison for over 5,000 years. At this point, Klaus's total prison time is already skyrocketing past 7,000 years, and we haven't even touched on his real crimes yet. His pattern of violence,
I remember killing you. I rather relished it. What a joy it is to relive
manipulation,
to walk over to the window and stand in the sunlight.
But I'll burn.
You don't have a choice.
and destruction is bad enough, but it's the way he escalates that makes him truly dangerous. The minor offenses are just the warm-up, because for Klaus, the real fun begins when he stops playing games and starts eliminating anyone who gets in his way. The real crimes are yet to come, and once they're added to the list, even an immortal being like Klaus wouldn't have enough time to serve his full sentence. Klaus Mikealson's criminal history is already catastrophic, and we haven't even gotten to the truly horrifying stuff yet. Trespass,
What the hell do you want?
Now, is that any way to treat a guest?
destruction of property, assault, and compulsion
I said, go home.
alone have stacked his sentence into the thousands of years. But that was just the warm-up. Now, it's time to get serious, because Klaus isn't just a violent criminal, he's a mass murderer. A war criminal, and possibly the worst supernatural terrorist in history. If the law ever caught up to him, he wouldn't just be serving a life sentence. He'd be serving dozens of life sentences, back to back. Let's start with the obvious, murder. The number of people Klaus has killed is almost impossible to count. Unlike your average criminal, who might kill out of rage or desperation, Klaus kills simply because he can. Whether it's eliminating a threat,
If you ever betray her, I will find you and I will deposit your head on the end of...
asserting dominance,
If you continue to defy me, your lives will be reduced to an unending sequence of agonizing...
or just proving a point,
You're aware the bite of a werewolf can kill a vampire? Well, as you can see, I'm...
he never hesitates to take a life.
How to answer me, love.
In the real world, first-degree murder, premeditated and intentional, carries 25 years to life per victim, while second-degree murder, impulsive but intentional, can range from 15 years to life. Now let's do the math. If we assume Klaus has personally killed at least 500 people over his 1,000-year existence, and that's being incredibly generous, he'd be looking at a minimum of 12,500 years in prison. And that's not even counting the people he's indirectly killed through manipulation, revenge plots, or supernatural experiments gone horribly wrong. And speaking of experiments, let's talk about his hybrids. One of Klaus's greatest obsessions has always been creating a new race of vampires mixed with werewolf DNA.
Stop. It's the new order, sweetheart. You join us.
But let's be honest, what he calls creating
I was the one who created a vampire bloodline. Now I am responsible for your lives.
is really just human experimentation on a mass scale,
Order, sweetheart. You join us, or you die.
turning unwilling humans into supernatural hybrids isn't just morally wrong. It's legally classified as non-consensual genetic modification, medical torture, and involuntary human experimentation, all of which are considered crimes against humanity. In the real world, illegal human experimentation
Hybrid. Excellent timing, Ray.
especially when it results in suffering or death, can be punished by life in prison per victim. And since Klaus has forcefully
I'd rather die than be a vampire.
Wrong choice.
transformed dozens, if not hundreds, of people into hybrids, many of whom died in the process, this category alone could double or even triple his prison sentence. But Klaus doesn't just kill people. He doesn't just experiment on them.
He'll thank me for it later.
He tortures them.
I'd rather die than follow you.
Well, at least you
There are countless victims who have suffered at Klaus's hands for extended periods of time.
think from you.
He has maimed,
Get me out of here. I can't even look at him.
stabbed, and psychologically tormented
The only thing that can heal me is his blood. Oh my god. Oh my god.
people purely for sport. He's left victims alive just long enough to enjoy watching them suffer.
No, that's not it. Almost.
In legal terms, this isn't just assault, it's torture.
Oops. Oh dear, what was that? I'm a little boozy.
Which carries a life sentence per victim under international law. If we assume that Klaus has tortured at least 50 people, again a very low estimate, he'd be facing 50 consecutive life sentences, ensuring he'd never walk free again. At this point, Klaus's total prison sentence is spiraling out of control. We're well over 20,000 years behind bars with no chance of parole, but somehow it's still not enough. Because the worst of his crimes aren't just about individual killings or personal acts of violence. The final category of his offenses doesn't just affect people, it affects entire populations. Klaus isn't just a murderer, he isn't just a torturer. He's a supernatural terrorist, and if his previous crimes weren't enough to condemn him forever, the next ones will seal his fate permanently. Klaus Mikealson's crimes have already stacked up to over 20,000 years in prison, but we're not done yet. Up until now, we've covered murder, torture, illegal human experimentation, assault, and supernatural coercion, all of which have ensured he'd never walk free in any legal system. But Klaus isn't just a killer or a criminal mastermind. He's a force of destruction. His worst crimes don't just affect individuals, they have wiped out entire populations, reshaped supernatural societies, and left cities in ruins. In human law, these actions would classify him as one of the worst criminals in history. Let's start with supernatural war crimes. Klaus has started and escalated numerous supernatural wars, particularly against other vampire factions, werewolf packs, and ancient secret societies. He doesn't just target individuals,
He'll thank me for it later.
he systematically destroys entire groups,
Do you hear that? The people have spoken.
wiping out bloodlines, executing enemies, and leaving behind chaos in his wake. In real-world terms, this is the equivalent of genocide, mass murder, and terrorism, all of which are international crimes punishable by life imprisonment or even the death penalty. The Geneva Conventions classify war crimes as acts of mass violence that target non-combatants, commit unnecessary cruelty, or involve the use of banned forms of warfare. If we apply this to Klaus's supernatural wars, he's violated nearly every single one of those laws. Some examples: he massacred an entire town simply because they stood against him. He's executed entire bloodlines just to eliminate potential threats. He's used compulsion to force people into fighting wars they never agreed to. In international courts, mass murder and war crimes often carry life sentences per offense, And in Klaus's case, he's committed hundreds. Even at a low estimate of 50 counts of war crimes, Klaus would be sentenced to at least 50 life sentences, meaning he'd never walk free again. But we're still not finished. Klaus isn't just a war criminal. He's a walking natural disaster. Over the years, Klaus has been responsible for countless acts of large-scale destruction. He's leveled entire villages, set fire to historic landmarks, and caused damage so severe that entire communities had to rebuild from scratch. In legal terms, these would be categorized as terrorist attacks and mass destruction of property, each of which carries 25 to 50 years in prison per incident. If we estimate Klaus has committed at least 30 major acts of destruction across his centuries-long existence, this would add another 1,500 years to his sentence. And finally, we get to his greatest crime of all, playing God. Klaus has spent his immortal life redefining what it means to be a predator. He has created new supernatural creatures, reshaped vampire society, and set rules that only he gets to enforce. In a human court, power-hungry dictators who attempt to alter the course of humanity through force are treated as the worst criminals in history. Many have been sentenced to death for far less than what Klaus has done. If supernatural law existed, Klaus would be charged as the single greatest threat to supernatural and human civilization alike. No government would allow him to exist freely. He'd be either executed or locked away for eternity. And with that, the final calculation. Murder, 12,500 plus years. Torture, 50 life sentences. Human experimentation, 100 plus life sentences. Supernatural war crimes, 50 plus life sentences. Mass destruction and terrorism, 1,500 plus years. If Klaus Mikealson were human, his total sentence would easily exceed 50,000 years in prison, with no possibility of parole. But Klaus isn't human. He's the hybrid, an unstoppable force, a supernatural god in his own right. And that's exactly why he'll never face a trial. Because deep down, even the justice system knows Klaus Mikealson doesn't get locked away. He's the one who does the locking.